Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a question that, well, I think many of us grapple with. Why do some people seem to just effortlessly build incredible wealth, while others, maybe even people with high incomes, just sort of struggle? We want to cut through the noise today and give you a shortcut to some really powerful financial insights.
Yeah, and our source material for this deep dive is pretty foundational in personal finance. We're looking at excerpts from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It came out back in 1997, and it's really influential. It's not your typical finance book. It challenges a lot of the conventional thinking about money, about work.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to unpack these contrasting financial mindsets that Kiyosaki presents through his Poor Dad and Rich Dad figures. We're aiming to pull out the surprising facts, the core principles that might just redefine how you think about money. Get you up to speed quickly, but, properly,
So,
thoroughly.
right. And Kiyosaki sets this up using two main figures from his own life. First, there's his biological father, who he calls the poor dad.
Hmm.
Highly educated guy, a school teacher, really valued traditional job security above everything else. And then on the other hand, you have his best friend's father, the rich dad.
Hmm.
He was more of a savvy businessman, didn't have a lot of formal education, but really emphasized, building assets. And that contrast, that tension is really the core of the whole book's philosophy.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The foundational principle. Kiyosaki starts with a really bold statement, doesn't he? The rich don't work for money.
It's pretty striking. What exactly does he mean by that? It sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Well, what he's saying is that the poor and the middle class, they're basically trading their time for money. They work for money. The rich, on the other hand, focus on making money work for them. And Kiyosaki's insight here, which is quite sharp, is that it's often driven by two emotions. The fear of being broke and desire wanting to buy things. So people get caught in this cycle. Get a job, earn money, spend it. He calls it the rat race.
Yeah.
They're running faster and faster, but not really getting anywhere financially. And this whole process, he argues, stops them from really learning how money actually works. They focus on job security instead of financial education.
Right, chasing the paycheck instead of building something. So that leads to his next big point. It's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. And a huge part of keeping it, according to him, is understanding this crucial difference most people get wrong. Assets versus liabilities. How does he break that down? Because I think people use those terms loosely.
Yeah, they really do. And this really raises the key question: what actually puts money in your pocket versus what takes it out? Kiyosaki's definitions are actually super simple, but profound. An asset, he says, is anything that puts money in your pocket, period. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. And he gives clear examples. Assets are things like businesses that can run without you needing to be there constantly, income-producing real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, even royalties from things like books or patents, things that generate cash flow for you.
Okay, hang on. Let me make sure I'm getting this. So based on that definition,
Yeah.
my house, the
Yeah.
place I live, that might actually be a liability. Because, we're always told our house is our biggest asset. That's kind of drilled into us.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki directly challenges that common belief. It's one of the most controversial points for many readers. He argues that while your home might appreciate in value over, the long term, month to month, it's taking money out of your pocket. Think about it. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance. If it's costing you money consistently, it's functioning as a liability in his framework. A true asset pays you. That's the critical difference he wants people to grasp.
Wow. Okay, that really flips the script on traditional thinking.
Yeah.
So if you grasp that distinction, the next logical step is, how do I get more of those real assets? That's where he brings in this idea of minding your own business, which interestingly doesn't necessarily mean quitting your job, right?
Exactly right. It's not about immediately becoming an entrepreneur in the typical sense. It's about focusing on building your personal asset column. Think of it like building your own financial engine separate from your job. So even if you have a regular job, which provides cash flow, that's important, Kiyosaki encourages you to spend time and energy on, say, a side hustle or investing strategically. It's about deliberately building things that generate income for you. Rather than just working to make someone else richer, you're building your own balance sheet, essentially.
Right, building your own thing on the side. Okay, now this next point, this might raise some eyebrows. He talks about corporations and taxes. Kiyosaki suggests the rich use corporations differently to protect wealth and reduce taxes. What's the core idea there? Because taxes often feel like just a fact of life you can't change.
Well, his argument is that financial literacy includes understanding the systems, including the tax system. He explains that legally, corporations offer certain advantages. For instance, businesses can often deduct expenses before paying taxes, whereas employees typically get taxed first and then spend what's left. And corporations can also sometimes help shield personal assets. So it's about understanding how the tax laws are structured, often to incentivize business creation and investment, and learning how to operate within those rules completely legally to your advantage. His advice is pretty direct. Learn how to use the system legally. It really highlights, a potential gap in financial education for many people. It's not tax evasion, it's tax efficiency through knowledge.
Understanding the rules of the game, basically.
Huh.
And related to that kind of savviness, Kiyosaki also drops this concept. The rich invent money. That sounds almost magical. It challenges the idea that you need money to make money, doesn't it? Like needing a big pile of cash to start.
It does. And connecting it back, his core point is that wealth isn't just about having resources, it's about being resourceful. He argues opportunities are literally everywhere, but you need the financial education, the mindset to actually see them. It's about identifying needs or problems, figuring out solutions that people will pay for, and then having the financial creativity and maybe the guts to take calculated risks to bring those ideas to life. It's not about counterfeiting. It's about creating value and structuring deals where maybe you don't even need your own capital up front, seeing potential where others don't.
Being resourceful, seeing opportunities. Okay, and another piece of advice that feels, well, backwards at first glance is work to learn, don't work for money.
hmm
The focus shifts from salary to skills. What kind of skills is he talking about?
Yeah, this is key. He emphasizes skills that might be outside your main professional training but are crucial for financial success. Things like sales, marketing, communication, really understanding how to persuade and connect with people. Also leadership and basic financial management, of course. And he uses a really powerful example in the book to drive this home. Think of a highly skilled, highly paid doctor. If that doctor doesn't know how to manage their money, invest it, or understand basic business principles, they can still end up broke despite a huge income. So earning potential alone isn't enough. It's about acquiring the skills to manage and grow that money, making it work for you. It's about building your overall capability, not just your paycheck.
That's a stark example. Okay, so we've got the philosophy, the strategies, the skills, but Kiyosaki also talks about roadblocks. He identifies 5 major obstacles he thinks prevent most people from achieving financial freedom. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. And recognizing these in yourself can be like a really important first step. First, there's fear, specifically the fear of losing money. This fear can be paralyzing, stopping people from investing or taking any kind of calculated risk. Fear of failure, basically. Second is cynicism, that negative voice, the doubt. People who immediately say, oh, that won't work, or find reasons why they can't do something. It blinds them to opportunities. Third, he calls out laziness, but it often masks itself as being too busy to read a finance book, too busy to analyze a deal, too busy to manage their own money, choosing easy comfort over effort. Fourth is bad habits. And a huge one he points out is the habit of paying your bills and everyone else first, and then only saving or investing what's left over, if anything. He argues you need to reverse that. And the fifth obstacle is arrogance, kind of the opposite of the cynic, maybe, thinking you know everything about money already, so you stop learning. You become closed off to new ideas or advice. And overcoming these, he suggests, takes conscious effort, education, taking small actions, and reflecting on what works and what doesn't.
Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance. Okay, those are definitely things to watch out for. So we know the philosophy, the obstacles. What about getting started? What practical steps does Kiyosaki offer for someone who reads this and says, okay, I want to start building wealth now?
He does offer some concrete starting points. First, he says you need to find a reason bigger than just wanting stuff, a deep why. Why do you want financial freedom? That purpose will keep you going when things get tough. Second, he talks about your environment. Choose your friends carefully. Surround yourself with people who discuss money and ideas constructively, people who support and maybe even challenge your financial growth. Third, and this is crucial, adopt the habit of paying yourself first. That means putting aside a portion of every dollar you earn for savings or investment before you pay any bills or spend on anything else. Make it automatic. Fourth, never stop learning. Read books, attend seminars, listen to podcasts like this one. Continuously educate yourself about finance and investing. And fifth, perhaps most importantly, take action. Don't just learn, do. Start small, make offers, learn from your mistakes because you will make mistakes and keep moving forward. And if you wanted to just summarize the core differences between the two mindsets, the poor dad versus the rich dad, Money mindset. Poor dad works for money. Rich dad makes money work for him. Education. Poor dad valued academics. Rich dad valued financial literacy and real world experience. Assets. Poor dad saw his job and house as security. Rich dad focused on income generating assets. Work. Poor dad sought job security. Rich dad sought financial independence through business and investment. Taxes. Poor dad viewed taxes as just something you pay. Rich dad learned to legally minimize taxes using the system. Risk. Poor dad avoided risk. Rich dad learned how to manage risk. It's a fundamentally different approach across the board.
It really is a stark contrast when you lay it out like that. And the final message from Rich Dad, Poor Dad feels quite empowering, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It basically says you don't have to be born rich. It's not about your background as much as it's about your mindset, your financial education, and really how you choose to handle the money you do have. It's about building that foundation of financial intelligence piece by piece.
Absolutely. To get there, Kiyosaki is essentially urging you
Mm.
learn the language of money, understand assets and liabilities, focus on acquiring those assets, don't be afraid of calculated risks, and just keep learning always because, as he says, the single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. That's the tool that lets you see the opportunities, solve the problems, and ultimately build wealth.
So, what stands out most to you from this deep dive? As you're listening, maybe take a moment to consider, is there a liability in your own life right now that maybe you've been thinking of as an asset? And perhaps, what's one small, calculated step you could realistically take, maybe even this week, to start shifting your focus towards acquiring genuine income-generating